Okay. I'm good. Okay, so good morning, everybody. It's great to have a good sized group, about same as this morning. So it's just took this opportunity to offer something different for our what was supposed to be March break this week. So something to kind of switch it up, and I'm sure there are events and things happening at your school. So I thought I'd do the same and provide a live coding session in an environment that teaches the same things about coding in terms of the block-based skills and everything that is required, but just something new and something fun. And it's basically called Microsoft Makecode. It's an online tool that it actually works on your smartphone through the browser as well. So if you have a tablet or a smartphone, you don't even need an app. You can just go to the same link that you have in front of you, and you can actually code away on smaller devices as well. What this allows you to do is make a game with a little bit of an 80s style of arcade game. Students, if you're not sure what that means, your teachers will definitely be able to explain what that is. Maybe they'll bring out some 80s style. Maybe not us, actually. I'm looking at the attendees. Maybe not 80s people here, but it's 40 years ago there was a little bit of a style of an arcade game that was really small and in low quality but still fun, and you'll see that in what we're going to make today. So students, when you come to this page, you can actually start, and you can scroll down and you can open up any of these games and play them, see the code, modify it if you'd like, just like Scratch and some of those other tools that you may have seen before. But it basically follows the same idea as say Scratch, where it has a paint editor, so you can actually create your own characters and backgrounds. But you also get to create your own behaviors of those characters as well. So in this tutorial today, what we're going to do is just create a character, create a background, which is going to be the maze, and program the environment of the game so that the character can't go through walls or basically follows the maze from start to finish. We'll have a timer set up, so they have to beat the clock to get to the timer, or they lose the game, or when they win the game, they can you can actually program a little animation and some music and some fun things like that. So at the end of this, we'll share our projects. I'll show you how to save the projects as well. So if you wanted to open these up later and maybe modify it at home or on another device, there is something you do have to do, but I'll make sure to cover all that in the time that we have. So enough of me talking about this. Let's get right to it. The activity that we're going to do today is under tutorials. So if you scroll down just a little bit, there are a whole bunch of different tutorials that walk you through step by step on how to create these little mini games. We're going to do actually doing a couple of other ones. I'm doing Lemon Leak and Chase the Pizza later this week. But today, you just have to come to the right. And Maze is the last tutorial. So if you wanted to just click on that and start the tutorial. So if you want to just jump right in, and it's going to open up the editor and get you started with what you need for this game. So just like the little animated GIF here, you have to we're gonna create a character to escape or find the exit of the maze in the time that you set as a time limit. So if you want to click Start, and I'll make this as large as possible for you so you can kind of see the blocks that I'm coding. So a tutorial allows a little bit more of a focused environment, in the sense that if you look over here into these categories, we're only going to be using the categories, or sorry, during tutorials, it only provides the categories that you are required to use for this specific activity. It doesn't overwhelm the user with all of the different categories that are possible in this environment. So it's a nice starting point if you're wanting to learn how to use the arcade environment. So today we're going to use these categories in sprites, controller, game, scene, info. I don't think we're using loops. I think that's just by default in variables. but in any case, they're there. On the left-hand side, you have a little simulator, and because it's an arcade 80s style, it has the appearance of a Game Boy, and you can actually use your mouse to go up, down, left, right. You can click on the buttons as well, or using your keyboard, you can use the up, down, left, right keys, and I believe space is A and enter is B. So just a note, not that we need all of those buttons right now. We're all basically just going to need the directional keys for this morning, but just to give you an idea of what's and how to use that simulator when you get to the point of testing out your game. At the top during the tutorial, you're going to see different bullets of steps for the tutorial. So in this case, we have 13 steps. We're on step 2 already. And during the tutorial, it actually shows you in text across the top what is it required at this step. The last thing before we get started is there's also a light bulb. And I'm going to encourage students not to click on the light bulb because it provides you the answer or a hint. And what I want you to do is follow my instruction or follow the instructions of the text at the top to try and find the blocks or the answers on your own, rather than just have the answers pop up for you, just because it just provides a little bit of a challenge for you instead of having the answer just appear. So the first step is we need a character for our game. So in the instructions, it says get a set my sprite to block in the sprites category. And we're going to put that in the start. So under sprites, we're going to get the set my sprite block, and there's only one in here for now. And we're just going to click on it once and then just snap it in like a puzzle, like on Scratch or other block-based programs. You're just going to snap it in there, and that's the first step. The next step is to actually animate your character now. So what I want you to do is, this block is basically saying set my sprite to this sprite, and this sprite is a player. It's not a food, it's not a projectile or an enemy, it's the player. And in this game, we're only going to be worried about a player. But in other games, you're going to have enemies and you're going to have projectiles. But by default, it's player, and that's what we want it to do. Now we got to design our player. So if you click on this gray box right here, this brings you to the two-dimensional type of paint area where you can draw your own character. I'm just going to go over the menu on the left-hand side really quickly. You have your draw or your paint pencil. You have your erase. You have your fill and your rectangles, your circles, your lines. And if you want to move something, you can use that. And in terms of colors, you have just some simple list of colors. They try and keep it simple in these environments, so there's not too much choice. So if you want your paint color to change, you just click on it. And with the coloring behind, this allows you to grab basically 2 colors at once. So if I wanted this to be my left click, and if I want another color, instead of having to come back here all the time, I can actually right click on a different color. Now I have 2 different colors to choose from. So now when I'm painting my character, I actually can draw, click and hold and drag. So what you're going to do right now is just take a couple minutes and draw a character. Now this is a square-based edge type of paint editor. So if you wanted to, you can design your character like a Minecraft character or like or anything that you want. But just think that this is your character that's going to walk through your maze. So just take some time, maybe a few minutes, and design your character. I'm just going to go ahead and draw my character. You can follow me along if you want. You don't have to. You can be as creative as you want. Let's see here. And if you have any questions from your students, teachers, please feel free to just type them into the chat. I have it on the side, just monitoring it. And if I don't hear from you, I'm just going to assume that everything is good to go. Okay. Let's see here. So you will notice that it's very limited in its capabilities here, but nonetheless, it's just a fun little pixelated type of character that you get to draw here. Let's see. Not an even number on both sides. Okay. So maybe another minute just designing. Please note if you're not finished drawing, that's okay. What I want to do is make sure that we get through the necessary instructional steps of today's game building. And I'm just going to show you when I click done. At any point of designing my code here, I can always come back and click on this sprite and come back and change it. So don't feel like you have to rush through it right now. Even at the end of this hour, if you're wanting to come back and change your character, make him or her a little bit more fancy, or if it's an animal, you can come back and spend more time on the character. I just need to make sure that we get through the game part of it. Okay. So maybe teachers, I'll just wait for maybe a raised hand. If you let your students know that we're okay to move on, I'll wait for your prompt. I can't decide. No problem, John. Yeah, that's kind of symmetrical. Okay, thanks, Madam Zettler, Miss Madam Hamlin. Raise hands. No problem, Madame Gauthier. We have plenty of time, but I do want to make sure we get through the coding part of it. I'm also going to be curious to see some of your creations today or later this week from your teachers. So after we learn how to share these projects, I'm going to look forward to playing your games and seeing what you came up with if you're willing to share. And who else is there? Jameson, are we okay to move on? Okay, so I'm just gonna take go with the next step. Again, you can always come back, and this video is being recorded, so we can watch it back later if you did miss something. So not to worry about that. So now that we have our character created, now we're going to tell the program that we can now use the controller to move the character around, and that's just with one block. So if you go over to the controller blocks category, there's just one block in there, and it says move my sprite with those buttons. So we're just going to snap that in right below my sprite. or set my sprite block. And now, if you come over here, you can use your keyboard, and you can actually move your character around. The next step is now, this is where we're going to spend a good chunk of our time, is to design our maze. So our maze is basically a tile map or the background of our game. And if you go to the scene blocks category on the left-hand side, you're going to see a set tile map 2 and then an icon here. So we're just going to grab that block and bring it in. And we're going to spend some time now to design our backdrop. So just like we did with our sprite, we clicked on this little gray box for our sprite. The same editor or a similar editor will show up for our tile map. So tile map and background. Tile map, because it's in, they're basically tiles in how you can design. It's not, you can't just draw freehand. You actually have to use tiles to draw. So that's why it's called a tile map. But if you click on that, now you're in an editor that is by default a certain size. We're going to keep with that size for now. It's a similar editor, but in a little bit different in the sense that you have now some options to choose in terms of your gallery. So in the tile map editor for your background, there are 3 different themes that are available. There's the forest, there's aquatic, and there's dungeon. There's also miscellaneous, and the miscellaneous group has some people cheering. So if you want to maybe have your finish line, you can have some people cheering at the end around the finish line. You can do that. There are some roads, some different random tiles in here that you can choose. So if you wanted your map to be a road or your maze to be a road, you can do that with some dead ends, obviously, in terms of a maze. Or you can get into different themes options. So here there's a different dungeon themes. So if you wanted to, you can actually get some pretty neat patterns going with your theme. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to zoom out, and you're going to spend some time creating your maze. Your maze has to have a start block and an end block. So when you're filling in your workspace, leave 2 of the tiles blank, the start point and the end point. A couple shortcuts here, if you wanted to. I'm just going to go to a forest, for example. Say I wanted all of my tiles to be, this block right here. Well, I can use this block right here and choose the fill option right here. And if I were to choose fill and just click anywhere, it will fill this tile wherever that same tile would be. So then you can actually change your backdrop pretty quickly by using the fill. So remember, we do need to have 1 blank spot here. So I need to use my eraser. I'm going to choose, maybe I'll choose the corner here. So my start point, I'm going to use as my top left tile. And my finish line, I'll just kind of randomly pick one at the bottom here. So remember, have a start. After you've designed your maze or your tile map, you have to make sure you have 1 start block that's left blank and then 1 end block that's left blank. And we'll get to why we had to do that later. But for now, we're designing our maze. So thinking about what a maze looks like, you need walls. So now I'm just going to go ahead and show you what you can do for walls, and it'll be up to you to kind of decide what block you want to use for your walls, depending on the theme that you've chosen. So for a dungeon, for example, if you've chosen like some of these tiles as your maze, and then you may want to choose like bricks as your walls, it's up to you to choose what you want to define as a wall. I'm going to use trees, and I'm just going to show you what, oops, I have the erase selected here. So I'm just going to draw some walls and think about your path of your maze. So I'm just going to have my maze is starting here, and it's going to come down, and we're going to have some options here. What do we want the people to do when they're playing my game? So click wherever you want a wall, and just have some fun with your design in terms of what you want your maze to look like. And we're going to spend a good 5-8 minutes on this, because it does take some time kind of thinking about what a maze looks like. But if you can think of your path, so if I'm going to go down, over, and here's my finish line, I'm going to think of maybe drawing that out really fast. So that's a really pretty simple maze. But now I'm going to use my my right and left click again. Remember, you can right click on my other tile, and then if I want to make some openings here, I can have different paths leading my character to think that it might be the right way. So I'm gonna keep going here. So teachers, again, if you have any questions, just raise your hand if you want to turn on your mic, or type them into the chat if you have any questions. But otherwise, we're on the designing your maze part right now, for the better part of the next at least 5 minutes or so, if not more. Good question, ma'am. You get to choose what you want to be floors and what you want to be walls. So right now, the trees are walls in terms of my design, and the floors are this little pink pattern. I'm just drawing my maze right now. I haven't coded it. I haven't coded the walls to be walls yet, but we're going to do that in the next step, probably or two. So yeah, just have some fun creating walls everywhere. Think about what your character, you can drag your mouse around to see, what options there would be if we wanted somebody to walk through our maze. What does that look like? Yeah, I'll just because. What I will explain, though, while we're on this, while we're in this editor, I will show you that the next couple of steps, and you can get to them wherever you want, but I'll still leave you a few minutes. Our game needs to know what the start point is and what the finish line is, or the end point. And by telling how we tell the game what that looks like is by choosing two different tiles. So one for our start and one for our finish. And those can't be the same as any other tile in our game. So my example is, if I'm going to go my finish line, I might choose the treasure chest because that's my finish line. I can choose any other tile, it doesn't matter, but as long as that treasure chest isn't anywhere else on this map, then my game will run without glitch. A glitch is usually something that happens in a game that isn't supposed to, or it might be something that it's supposed to happen, but the player doesn't know that it's possible. And I'll explain that to you in a few minutes, but when we get to drawing our walls. But for now, we're gonna just make sure that we have a separate tile for our finish line and a separate tile for our start line. And I'm just gonna use two completely different tiles. It could be from a different theme or one of these different drop-down menus. Oh yeah, I'm gonna put these people here. That's right. I'm just gonna have a little crowd. I'm gonna put a little crowd around my finish line just to cheer my player on when they get to the end. Yeah, sure. Okay. And again, this is up to you. You can be as creative. You can do as much as you want with this or as little. But as long as you have floors and walls and a clear path to the finish line, that's also important. So that the players can actually win your game or finish your maze. And really the last step while you're still designing, if that's what you're still doing, is now we actually have to tell the program that these tiles are walls. So now if I go over here to the left-hand side, I'm just going to zoom in. You're going to see your icons and tiles that you have selected. But over here to the right is a wall. So now I'm under draw wall mode. And basically what that does is now I'm telling the program what's an actual wall. And essentially what you're going to do is you're going to click on top of the walls that you've drawn to tell the program, okay, look, this is a wall. My player can't go through this wall or on top of it. It's basically, the player can't go on top of that tile. So that's what you're doing here. You're just telling the game these blocks are not allowed to be walked on. So, and after this step, that's essentially the design of the background. Your start point, your end point, your walls, and your floor. And then that'll be it for your game design of your maze. So again, you're grabbing the tile the draw walls icon on the left in the menu, and you're just clicking on top of everywhere there is a wall. Oops. If you miss one, then your player will, the player playing your game will be able to walk on top of that wall. I didn't really design this how I wanted to, but let me just fix something up here. Let's see here. Oh no. Just trying to intentionally do something, and I'll explain why in a second. All right, go back to draw wall mode. You can click and hold and drag if you have a long series of walls too. My people can't, I don't want my person to walk all over my people, so I have to make sure those are walls. Now, I don't know if you've ever played a video game and there have been, let's call them shortcuts or things that happen that are possible in the game that aren't really provided to you in the instructions. You can actually create a glitch in your game as well by adding a shortcut or a secret path. And what that will allow the user to do is if you were to create, let's see here. If I wanted my player to or if I wanted in my game there to be a secret path to the finish line, that if by chance they find it, then that's just luck for them. You can actually remove a wall from. I'm just going to erase the wall. So if I were to erase this wall, for example, even though it looks like a wall, players playing my game won't know that by looking at it. But if they were to accidentally, or maybe by intention of your game design, if you wanted to create a shortcut, you can actually take the draw wall or make a wall not pink or red. And what that'll allow the player to do is actually walk through like a secret passage to the finish line or a shortcut. So it's something that you can do in this game. You don't have to create a shortcut or a glitch for your players to get to the finish line quicker. But and in this case, I don't even know if it would be quicker in my maze, but yeah, probably not. But if you wanted to add, secret passages or paths wherever you want, you can leave out a couple of walls that aren't walls. That makes sense. By definition of your game, so that your player or your character can actually walk through them as a secret path. So that's what's called an extension of the activity, in the sense of it's not in the tutorial, but it's something that I thought I'd show you if you wanted to take it to a next level of adding shortcuts, depending on what your maze looks like. So secret passage, Ms. Jameson, is if you're using. So I have my walls as trees, and then I actually have to tell the program that these are walls by clicking on the by clicking the pink. Making my walls pink will actually make the walls in the game. If I make a wall not pink and forget one or intentionally leave one out, that would mean that my player would actually be able to pass through this tile, even though it looks like a wall. It would be like a secret passage. So hopefully that helps. Does that make sense? So so if you have a wall that looks like a wall, but you don't actually click it to be red, then it would actually be a secret passage. Doesn't bring you anywhere else. It just allows you to walk through the wall if you want to. So I'm just going to put those two on there just for example, and I'll show you what I mean in my game. Actually, if I click done, I'll show you what I mean. I think, yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool. So if you're actually out of this screen and into the code, that's okay. Just note that I've skipped through some of the tutorial steps instead of going back and forth. I addressed some of the tutorial steps while we were designing our tile map, so that we didn't have to go back and forth too many times. So what do we have here? We're half an hour in. How about maybe 2 more minutes of designing your maze and defining your walls? Is that okay? Or if you need more time, maybe we can probably take maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Like I said, we can always come back and make those changes if we want to. I just want to make sure that you do understand how to finish your game from start to finish, and making sure the game works and all those things. Oops. Okay. So again, this recording will be available for future reference if you had a student absent, or if students want to watch it again. I'll even make this accessible to them at home through YouTube. So that'll be something that they can watch, and maybe show their parents or whatever they'd like after this session. So if the maze is not appearing on the Game Boy, it means that you've stopped the program possibly. So if you come over here, there's a stop and play. Play means it'll always refresh. And if you stop the simulator, it will stop refreshing as you're coding or designing. But if you escape out of the tile map and click done, you'll notice that mine's refreshing right now. Oh, it didn't refresh because I didn't do anything. But so if I were to, I'm just going to put a wall here, for example. You'll, yeah, see it refresh there just for a second. Let's see here. So it seems to be working pretty good. Oh no. See, what's happening right now is that your player's falling off the screen, and that's one of the next steps. Oh, see, this is a glitch. I'm going through my wall. So that's what I mean by secret passage. It looks like a wall. It really isn't. It's secrets. Okay, hopefully that answered your question. Or refresh right here might refresh it. This little icon right here, kind of like refreshing your browser tab. Would be the only reason I can think of. Don't refresh your page or anything. Just try refreshing using this, or stopping and starting, or even this icon right here. It'll refresh your simulator. Now you have to also make sure that the tile map tile is in the start window here. If it's not in this sandwich here, then it will not appear. Like if I were to take this out, it won't appear on the Game Boy. It has to actually be part of the program. And just make sure that the tiles or the blocks are are exactly what you're seeing on my screen. Should only have 3 blocks. We're getting the error message. Cannot read property. Width. Oh. So width means that you've defined the space to be a different size. So down in the bottom left here, you'll notice that there's a size, 16 by 16. Make sure that that is still 16 by 16. Because if you make it too big, it'll just take forever to finish your maze, or too small, then it might not fill the screen. So make sure those 2 numbers are filled in. Null means 0. I'm assuming that's width. Like if I were to do 0 here, I'd probably get the same error. Let's just try. Let's see if that's the, yeah, oh, 0 still didn't provide error null. Actually, yep, it says, I don't know, Madame Gauthier, I'm not really sure. Property width of null. Property width of null, 16 by 16. Tile map. That's a good question. Oh no, did I erase my tile map? That's okay. It's actually good troubleshooting here. I'm still not understanding what, oh no. That's okay. There's always undo, by the way. Undo and redo in the bottom right if you happen to accidentally lose your space. Maybe Madame, after the session, if it's still not, is it for everybody or just one student? Okay, yeah, maybe we can just connect afterwards through screen share, and you can share it with me after. If they want to just follow along, or if they wanted to just restart, they can probably catch up pretty quickly with the friend helping if they just refresh. But I'll just keep going just for the sake of time. And again, this is recorded, so you can always come back to it later. Okay, so I refreshed my page. Hopefully this refreshes. Oh no. Grab my tile map. Did I not hit OK? 16, 16. Oh. See, mine's doing it now. Oh, that's funny. Okay. I'm gonna go to the next, and it's probably gonna fix itself anyways, but it'll probably correct itself automatically. Nope, it won't. Funny. Okay. Well, look at that, eh? You created a glitch. We created a glitch. Let's try to change this. That is so weird. Here, I'll even just refresh, just because I can pull this back up pretty quickly. Oh, I can probably lose my thing. That's okay. That's okay. Fill. Trees. Trees. Oops. Undo. Sorry about this. Start. All right, erase. All right, there we go. Oh, I'll do it by start and finish. Okay. Start. Apologies. Faults here. Start and finish. Just be less fancy. Gives you all a few extra minutes of designing. Oops. I'll erase later. Yeah, good question, Madame Zeller. We're going to change the camera of the game as well, just after I finish this really quickly. Erase. Erase. This isn't. This isn't. This isn't. This isn't. Okay, there we go. Zoom in. There we go. Okay, good. So we're on step 4, 5. I can't remember. Oh, yes. Okay, so we already have. So I'm gonna just kind of reset. I've set my tile map. I have my walls. I have my start and finish points. So now what I need to do is finish the program off to define these places. So if I go to the next step, I need to tell my sprite or my character to go to the starting point every time the game starts. So by doing that, you're going to go to the scene menu, and you're going to place my sprite on top of a random square, but it's not going to be random. We're going to define that. We're going to drag that into the start. Now, instead of just going to a random place on in our tile map, we're going to actually say, you know what? I know what my starting point is. I designed it in my tile map. My start point is this icon right here in mine. So what you need to do is where it says place my sprite on top of a random tile, not a random tile, you need to find that one tile that you've set to be your start. And because there's only one of these in my program, it can only randomize one spot. There's only one spot for that place to be. So it's always going to go to that starting point because there's only one of those tiles. Okay, so we have 4 blocks of code so far. And your screen or your workspace should look like this. If your character is not finished or your tile map isn't finished, that's okay. We're almost done our game because we did some of these next steps while we were designing. So now, because like Madame Zeller just said, some of your characters were moving off the screen. And if I go over mine, I'll show you what I mean. So if I go all the way to the right here, see my character is gone. I don't know where they went. And I'm still controlling them, but where are they? So there's another block in the scene editor that's called camera follow my sprite. So we're going to go to the scene category, and there's actually just a tile called that, camera follow me. And we're just going to click and drag that in there. And that's it. So now if I go restart my program over here and I use my right arrow key, see, now the camera's actually moving and following me. It's so cool. Think of how fancy this would have been. If we were making these in the 80s, it would be very, very rich right now. But we're 40 years later and technology has come a long way. So this isn't as fancy anymore. But think about it. You're making a really cool maze that could have worked on a Game Boy. Or it actually can still work on a Game Boy. So now we have camera following and start point defined. And now we have to finish with what happens when it's done. So we have to define that last block, that finish line block that you've chosen by choosing the last another category under scenes. It's called on sprite of kind player overlaps at location. I'm going to explain what all that means. So it's a really big block, and it's actually going to be put. Actually, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. I'll zoom back. It's actually a separate group of blocks. It's not. It doesn't snap into this on start, because you'll notice it doesn't have a puzzle piece. It actually has edges like a puzzle. Outside edges, so that it actually can't. It's actually a separate kind of program, or what's called a sub program. So our start program is one program. This on sprite is another program, and what we're actually telling it to do is when the sprite, that is the type is a player, overlaps with my finish line. So now we have to find that tile that we've said is going to be our finish line or our exit of our maze. For me, it's the treasure chest. And what happens when that happens? We're going to say the game is over, and you win. So under the games category on the left-hand side, there's just one block in there, and it says game over. But we didn't lose; we actually win. So when this sprite, or when our character overlaps, meaning it goes on top of or right beside my finish line tile, the game is over and you win. So what happens when that happens? Let's just see. I'm going to go find the finish line. I can't remember what the answer is here. Created a glitch. All right. So believe it or not, students, this was really fancy stuff 40 years ago. What you're seeing right now, that was like, we paid big bucks for games like that. But now it's just a novelty kind of fun thing that we're doing just to show you how to code, and which is actually really cool too. And actually, I'm going to show you at the end. You can actually put this game that you're building, this code, this program, onto an actual device, and you can walk around and play this like a Game Boy. We don't unfortunately have these. Unfortunately, we don't have these at our in our resource area, but some of them are very inexpensive, and you can actually use what you're using now, create some games, and go play with them walking around. They could actually, they're so small they can fit in a pocket. So, anyways, blah blah blah. So now the game's over. You win. You can click this little plus symbol as well, and you can actually create a little animation if you wanted to. Of confetti falling, or clouds, or stars, or smiley faces. I'll just add the smiley faces just to show you what happens really quickly. All right, so there I added a little animation of smiley faces falling from the top of the screen. Again, this is as fancy as it gets for now, but in any case, you have a start and an end, and you have an effect when the game is over. So pretty cool stuff. Okay, we're almost done here. So the last thing, or second last thing we have to do is figure out a timer. So you're in your game, typically to escape a maze, you have a set amount of time you're going to give your player playing your game to get out. So this will be up to you to kind of determine, depending on what your maze looks like. But the block that you need is under the info category, and a start countdown. And the start countdown block will snap just at the end of your start program right here. And you'll notice now in the simulator that the timer will start counting down as I'm playing. And it's flashing, it's flashing. What happens if I don't get to the finish line? It'll say game over. If I want to play again, I press A, and then you can actually set some like new world records or new records for your game. Take about a minute or so playing your maze and determine what you think is a reasonable number to set as your countdown timer. You don't want, like, obviously you know the answers to your game, So you can try and finish it as fast as you can, knowing the answer. But think about, should I give my players an extra, 3 seconds, maybe 5 seconds or 8 seconds, just in case they run into a dead end, give them time to go back up and try and find the end. Think about that number, and then when you get back to your code, you can actually change the countdown timer depending on how complicated or how easy your maze is. Okay, so just take a second to play your game, play with that number, and then we're pretty much done coding our game. I'm just going to stop my simulator for a second because it'll keep beeping, or you can actually turn off the volume if you want on the simulator. And there's still one more, I think. Oh yeah. So I've already covered this part where it says go back and define your walls. We already did that back when we were actually designing, so I skipped this step and incorporated it into the previous. But essentially what you have in your screen, if your tiles look the same as mine, which these are all the tiles that we've used today, you have now designed a game that you can play. Yeah, your friends can play. How do you take off the you win? You can't. You can't take off the you win. There's not really much of an effect there. It's just built into the default of the game over. If you don't want that to happen, not really sure there's another option. Yeah, I really don't think there is another option. So the you win is actually just identifying to the player that's playing the game that you win, you just beat the game. And this is very bare bones kind of introductory to building a maze. I'm sure there are different ways of customizing the finishing message if you do win, which I can share with you later. I'll do some digging around, but I'm sure once we get out of this tutorial, there are some different effects that you can add. And that's the next thing that I was just going to show you. Because we're on the last step here, we finished our game. The tutorial has a big orange button in the top right-hand corner. If you click on this, it's going to escape out of the tutorial. It's now going to give you a chance to give it a title, which I'm going to suggest that you do. I'm just going to stop this. How do I stop this? It's not going. It's going to beep, but that's okay. Mr. Anello's Session 2 Maze. So I'm just going to give it a title. So that's after you click finish. This pop-up shows up. You can give it a title, and you're now able to publish your project. Now you can publish the project to your class. So if there's a Google question in your Google Classroom, you can instruct your students to go in there and paste this link that they get right here in as their answer. And then because it's a Google Classroom question type of assignment or task, students get to see other students' answers. So they'll be able to click on the links and play their games. So really neat way of sharing end games to friends. They can, if there's another way they can share that link, that's great. If there's a Google Doc you want to make and put them all in there, that's great too. But what happens is if I'm just going to open a new tab, if I paste that link in here, it'll default to the Game Boy mode. That's okay, Ms. Jameson, I'll come right back. So when the students click on this, it's not gonna, it'll actually bring them to the full screen version of the game, which is kind of cool. If they want to see what the code is, they can actually go in at the top here. There's show game, show code. If they want to edit the code, they can do that as well. So that's another way if the student wants to keep their project, they can click on this link and bookmark it and come back to it later using bookmarks in the browser right here. I'll just remove it. The other option, and I'm just going to go back here. So Ms. Jameson, if the students still see the tutorial banner at the top and they've gone through all of the little nuggets at the top, the 13 steps, they'll see finish in the top right-hand corner of the screen. Once that's pressed, it escapes them out of the tutorial mode and pops up a share or provide a title and then share your project right here. If that's completely gone and you're back to this screen, in the bottom right here or bottom left here, you're allowed to give it a title. You can now use the save icon, and it'll ask you to it'll save it as a project in your list of projects, which I'll show you in a second. Or shares at the top here, Ms. Jameson. So in the top left here, there's share. And this is the pop-up that appears. You can click on, give it a title, and then publish your projects. And then this is the link that the students can share. So it's a link that they have to just copy and then paste to whatever way they want to share. Okay. And it's okay. This was recorded. You're going to have access to this video shortly after this this session, anyways. We still have a few minutes, not too many minutes actually. What I wanted to show you is our little hardware options that you have to put this game on. So on the bottom left here, you're going to see a big download button right here. And by clicking on that, it actually shows you the different types of little game handheld devices that are possible to purchase if you want. By clicking download and choosing one, say for example, BrainPad Arcade, it'll actually provide you with a downloaded file that you actually have to put onto that device. But that downloaded file can actually go into their Google Drive for future import. So like, because the project that they created right now is saved on their profile on the device, it doesn't actually follow them in the cloud anywhere. You may want to take that file that was just downloaded and put it into like a Google Drive folder, maybe called Makecode Arcade files. And then by doing that, they can then open it later in Microsoft Makecode Arcade. So what I mean by that is if I click home and get out of all of this, my projects you'll see, and the students will see these that they've just created right now. But there's also an import button right here, and they can actually import a project. So by importing a project, it could be something that they just made. And I just downloaded this file earlier. And it's going to actually import it back into the Makecode environment for me to play. So that's the one way that, and this is recorded again, so you can pull this up. But if you wanted to download that file, you just have to choose the hardware device. I'm sorry. It really doesn't matter which one you choose because the online environment recognizes all of these languages. So if I choose Meowbit, for example, it'll actually download it as a file recognizable for that piece of hardware, but it's not going to be any different than what we just downloaded previously. So it's kind of funny. It's an interesting environment in terms of saving. Not much you can do about it, but hopefully that answers your question about sharing. And I'm going to stop there. And there are a few more minutes, and I'm still flexible to stick around a few extra minutes too if you need to. But I'll leave it to you to ask any questions if you have any about the project, where you're at. If you've missed something, I can kind of pull it up. Game over. I'm curious about game over now. Thanks, Ms. Etler. That's what I'll be doing right after this. Let's see here. Any questions, comments, anything? Feel free. Put your hand up, turn on your mic, chat. Hopefully that was fun, something different. Hopefully it wasn't too fast. Anything? Anybody? Any students want to say anything? Feel free to jump up to the camera. I can stop recording, or I'll leave it, and I'll just cut it out after if I need to. Okay, thanks, Manam. I'm hoping to do these sessions throughout the rest of the year. Maybe not using this specifically, but different platforms. Maybe not as frequently as well, but maybe once in a while, once a week, every 2 weeks, to kind of give you an opportunity to further develop your coding backgrounds and skills. I will take requests from teachers as well if there's anything specific you're looking to address related to coding. But like I said, this week was just to kind of throw in a little fun element for March break asterisks this week. So hopefully everybody enjoyed themselves. And if feel free to share your links with your teacher. I'm curious to see some of your projects. And if you don't have anything, feel free to log off and have a great rest of the week. If you have any questions, I'll stick around for a minute or two if you have any questions.